Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Now, live from Chicago, the Hal Sparks radio program Mega Worldwide.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
Hal Sparks, actor, comedian, and multimedia personality.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Hal Sparks.
All right, let's do this.
All right, here we are. Fresh system, fresh everything, refreshed browser caches have been erased. Memory has been wiped. I don't know if that helps. But hard drives have been defragged. I'm kidding. That's just a callback to the 90s. But here we are. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, now with 100% more Johnny Million, live on the air, streaming at infotakeovers.com, streaming at twitch.tv/Hal Sparks. And so much to cover. So much to cover. Not the least of which is that the war between Trump and DeSantis that I told you would kneecap both of them had a I don't know if it like an addendum, a sidetrack, and an extra weight added to. I don't know how to quite describe Nikki Haley's throwing her bonnet in the ring in this particular situation.
I also want to make sure that we talk about the texts and private messages that came out during
Johnny Million.
The discovery,
boy.
yeah.
They're very. And by the way, for those that don't know, in the Dominion lawsuit, a big chunk of the lawsuit itself, the kind of their evidentiary filing about all the stuff they got in discovery, minus a few redacted pieces, came out this week, and it's a couple of hundred pages. I think it's 192 pages long. I only got through about 80 pages of it. And I have to tell you, first of all, the Dominion lawyers have a future in I don't know, novellas, crime drama, pulp fiction books. Perhaps they could have their own Netflix series at some point, because the way this thing is set up like it's not set up like, hey, judge, here's the categories, read these, then you'll get our gist. It tells a story that, I mean, they're really crafting their narrative very, very well. And it starts out with some super potty language. It's so funny
it's
that
amazing.
Yes, it is. We'll get to that in just a moment. But I first want to address the Ohio train wreck. Now, Norfolk Southern, and we're finding out day after day that Norfolk Southern was gave money to DeWine's campaign, and so he felt like he should give them a little bit of deference when their trains went off the tracks. And he listened to their engineers before he listened to the EPA and the NTSB who were there, and said controlled explosion, and they started at that before he declared needed any federal help or any of that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of sketchy stuff between him and the train company, perhaps, and quite frankly, the need for this will jumpstart Obama's press back in the day to get a better braking system on these trains, for especially if they're carrying toxic waste or toxic chemicals.
Regulation, smegulation. The environment's going to be fine. This will all sort itself out by the market will sort this out.
Right? Yeah.
The market of dead animals at the bottom of a creek.
Right, or East Palestinian residents. Palestine residents? Yeah. Palestinians. I'm going to call them the East Palestinians. Yeah. That's, I guess, technically. Here's the thing. I blame Ronald Reagan.
Oh, me too, for everything.
Just about. I mean, obviously, that came along right at a time when you and I were just blooming into, we didn't get to vote in either Reagan election because of our age.
And I thought it was cool. I had no idea. I was 10. He won me over.
Right. I was not a fan because I think I was from the South. I liked Jimmy Carter as a man, and I was in my
I definitely wanted Jimmy Carter to win.
Yeah, I was in my quite devout Christian years.
Nice.
And, and so he was a fine Christian gentleman who was honest about his own shortcomings, which was a big deal back in the day. That was something.
Yeah.
That's what preachers in pulpits, when they did bring up politics, used to bring up. Pre-Reagan, they kind of used to go, yeah, he's a good man, and nobody's perfect, and he recognizes that in the eyes of Jesus or the Lord or whatever, he has to ask for forgiveness, and we all do, and he's doing his best, and he's an honorable, ethical human being. Like, that's what they used to care about. And then I don't know what, like, Reagan flipped the switch in these guys' heads.
It's cool to be a jerk. Boy, I must have said something different.
Yeah, I know. But the phrase that Reagan gets, the big Reagan quote, which I think second only to Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall.
I know the one you're going to say.
Is I think you all know that I've felt that the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
I'm
now,
here to help.
Okay, first of all, if you added U.S. to the front of government there, it's something that a foreign enemy would say during the 80s. It's something the Russians would say, at the height of the USSR Cold War stuff that he went on. So just dragging your own government for the sake of dragging it, which is what he was doing. By the way, while you're running to head the damn thing.
Yeah.
Like literally, the argument, as best I could factor it when I was, 10, 12, 14, 16, during the Reagan years, was that this guy is running to head an organization that he thinks is dangerously inept, and he's going to keep it that way. The most he was promising was, if you get into trouble, we'll just leave you alone to deal with it. Because I don't know what the other slice of that argument is. But that is the seed by which most, executive level Republicans operate now. They operate on this idea, obviously all Republicans these days run on the idea that the government can't do anything right, elect me and I'll prove it.
Yep.
But they do it from a position of that if there was ever a mission statement for the Republican Party, it's that Reagan quote. And so the idea is either keep the federal government out of any kind of, help or support, either because they create this artificial idea that it will heal itself, like Katrina or whatever, just let it hang, it'll work its way out. Or after an earthquake or after a flood or a tornado, it's Kansas's problem, right? Honestly. Or they just don't want funding to go to states that aren't theirs. So in the case of, with I think Rand Paul being the rare exception, that he doesn't seem to want anybody to get disaster relief.
No.
People in Florida didn't want New Jersey and New York to get help after Sandy. Republicans in New York and New Jersey didn't want Florida to get help after umpteen hurricanes whenever they happen. The point is, if you have a giant functioning society, which I think is the goal of any, first world nation, if that's the standard you're hoping to live up to. Yes, right. Well, at some point, there are going to be things that are outside the realm, outside the control or the responsibility of your local or your state government, simply because of the funds available and the manpower and and you're either going to have to ask other states for help or ask all of the other states for help. Now, after a few of these things, after a few hurricanes, your neighboring states are going to have it up to here with you. So this is one of the reasons why FEMA and these programs were created in the first place, is because Florida and the Panhandle and Texas on the Gulf and South Carolina and sometimes even the Northeast coast would get hit by storms so often that the neighboring states that were inland that didn't have to deal with it were kind of sick and tired of sending their National Guard and their people over to solve the next state's over problem, while the rest of the time they still have to pay for gas when they goes to visit the beach there. So there was no, it wore out its welcome, as it were. So we have a nationwide pool that we all contribute to because we don't want 8 failed states around the entire country, right?
Quit describing society.
Well, and in this particular case, the irony is it actually, over time, has helped the states that don't have recurring problems, that have surprise disasters, not the hurricane states or the tornado lanes or even the earthquake states, but the ones that have environmental disasters caused by corporate corruption, accidents, a combination of the two, as it seems in Ohio right now. So the idea, like, that phrase, as proudly as Republicans say this all the time, that, I mean, it's like they can rattle it off like they can the Second Amendment. Well, I mean, that's not fair, because they always leave out the first part of the Second Amendment about the whole militia and well-regulated part. Right?
Yeah, well-regulated does not.
Yeah, they leave that whole well-regulated. They
yeah.
kind of drive that. They actually can. Then I think it's clear. They can actually cite Reagan's words about, you know, the 9 most terrifying words in the English language. They can cite that better than they can cite the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
And I would ask any of them. I wish somebody, every time this happens in a red state, in a state like Ohio right now that just elected J.D. Vance, who, by the way, doesn't know whether FEMA is working with the state or not, has no idea, is in Washington, has every access point you could possibly want, can literally call up the president's office and go, hey, on behalf of my state, this is an emergency. The governor and I have talked, blah, blah, blah. He can do that as a senator from the state. This isn't just a congressional local dude. This is, you know, this is a statewide office. Has no idea what's going on. He genuinely has no idea, it seems, according to his Twitter feed, and couldn't care less either. But I would, when these people stand up, like DeWine, Ted Cruz,
He looks super healthy though.
Rand Paul, any of these folks, can someone please, a reporter, go, recite these words, go, famously Reagan, is the titular head of the Republican Party in many ways, said the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Is that why you're not asking for federal aid?
Yeah.
Because it will make them have to, I think, stand and deliver. At some point, either stop saying that or recognize that by saying that, the responsibility as a governor or a senator or a local politician is either on you totally, because we don't need the big government to do it, or it's not the government's problem. Go out and tell the constituents that elected you to office they're on their own. Because that's what that statement means, and
Yep.
what it leads to is mass deregulation. The elimination of key support structures for the entire country, which, by the way, help the economy and every other human, even if you don't care about human lives, which they don't seem to sometimes. It helps. A bunch of dead fish and a dying river will not help business long term. I'm just saying investment wise. Of course, this isn't an investment advice. Talk to your person at, I don't know, talk to tech support at E-Trade. I don't know, whoever. We'll be back right
Don't
after
do
this.
it.
I won't. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, mega worldwide. After this, Fox News, apparently two-faced. I know. Shocking.
What?
Shocking. Shocking. We'll be back.